So, Seamless Week 1, Day 5. So, it's the last day of Seamless Week 1. And this is focused on Job and the Tower of Babel. So, Job is actually the 18th book of the Bible, but they say that it happened somewhere right after Noah. So, again, the Bible is chronologically out of order, but Job would happen somewhere after the flood. And Job was a righteous man, and he loved God, and God loved him. But Satan basically challenged God and said, I know Job is righteous, and I know you love him, and I know he loves you, but if all of these things happened to him, his life wasn't perfect. He didn't have wealth, he didn't have family. I bet he would not stand by you. I bet he would not love you. And God basically says, I will give you the ability to test him, but do not kill him. So Job goes through a lot of different challenges. He loses family, he loses wealth, he has physical things happen to him, but he remains faithful to God. He doesn't abandon God. Now, does he question God? Yes, he questions God. His friends make him question God too. His friends try to tell him that you're having these bad things happen as a punishment to you, but that wasn't necessarily true. And we don't always understand why things happen and why God allows things to happen, but we know that God knows everything, and we don't know everything. We don't know his ultimate plan. We don't know what everything God has in store. We don't know everything God has in store for us or for other people, but we know that God is good, and we know that whatever he does, there is a purpose for it. There's a purpose for you. There's a purpose for me. There's a purpose for everyone. And God knows it. We just don't. And we can't fathom it because we're not God. God has like this brain that we will never understand. And it's one of those things where if you try to think about it too much, you'll just pass out. So Job was a righteous man. He had bad things happen to him. God allowed this. But it did not mean that God did not love Job. God did love Job, and he was Job was very faithful to God. But it's okay to question. It's not okay to abandon our faith, and Job didn't abandon his faith. So the second part of Seamless, the last day of week 1 of Seamless, is on the Tower of Babel. And after the flood, there were no people except for Noah and his family on the earth, and God told Noah's family to fill the earth and then scatter amongst the earth, and they didn't necessarily scatter. So they were filling the earth, but they all stayed in one spot, and they decided to build this tower. And it was actually, they used brick, which was an innovation. Brick was new, so they thought, okay, we'll build this big tower of brick, and we'll become very powerful because we'll have this big tower that reaches to the heavens. And God says, whoa, I told you to scatter so that no one will become too powerful. And so they didn't do it. God did it for them. He scattered them using their language. I guess if we don't all speak the same language, it's hard to communicate. You can't build something quite as big and as powerful and as strong. You can't be as powerful if you don't all speak the same language and can't all understand each other. So he scattered them for them by mixing up their language and creating new languages. And that is what the Tower of Babel is. So that is how the earth began to be filled, was by God scattering people because of their language and not understanding one another. So that's really what the last day of week 1 is on, Job and the Tower of Babel. And as we get into the next week, it gets a little bit more complicated. We start talking about Abram and Sarai and God's covenant with Abram, and basically his descendants, which are all the people. So stay tuned.